That's it. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the ORIOLE Resources Interim Results Investor Presentation. Throughout this presentation, investors will be on listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. There's a text box at the bottom. Simply type in your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today, and where appropriate, responses will be published. These will be available via your Investor Meet Company dashboard. I'd also like to remind you that this presentation is being recorded. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand over to Tim Livesley and Bob Smeaton, CFO of ORIOLE Resources. Thank you.
Thanks very much, and good morning, everybody, and thanks for taking the time to listen in, and for giving us the opportunity to introduce you to ORIOLE, update you on ORIOLE if you're already aware of who we are and what we're doing, and also for us to run through our latest interim financial statements. So I'm going to kick off with a presentation, which is the usual disclaimer, just to give you an idea of who we are and what we do. I will just say this presentation is available on our website, so at any time you can, after the presentation, you can always go there and take a look. We are an AIM-listed junior exploration company. We have been listed for about 15-16 years now, but we underwent a bit of a corporate transformation in 2018 when Bob and myself and the new board joined the company. We are early stage explorers in Cameroon. We believe we have a first mover advantage here. The Cameroon government is really proactive with investment in exploration and mining, and to the extent that they've working with the World Bank and funding from the World Bank, they've recently, or in the past few years, been working on a prospectivity analysis of the entire country to attract investment into exploration and mining. We have a great local partner in Cameroon. We have 2 existing licenses, which we've been exploring now for just over 2 years. And we also have a package of 8 licenses building the portfolio in central Cameroon. In Senegal, we are partnered with IAMGOLD. We have a key license to us in Senegal, which IAMGOLD signed an earn-in agreement on in 2018. And IAMGOLD, obviously a large Canadian mining company with experience of exploration and mining, both construction and operation in Africa. That's in year 3 of its investment at the moment. I'll be talking about that later on. We're an experienced board and management team. Bob and myself joining in earlier in 2018, and then a new chairman and a new non-exec joining in September 2018. Between us, we've got great experience in the AIM markets, company turnarounds, and also technically and financially in the development of particularly gold and base metal assets in Africa and Europe. We've got some great opportunities for growth of the company and also financial opportunities, which Bob will expand on a little bit more later on. We also have Claire Bay, our VP Exploration and Business Development. Claire has a longer history with the company and a key link back to some of the legacy assets where we have that knowledge base carrying on through into ORIOLE. So we'll start off with Cameroon. Cameroon for us, back in 2018, it was an opportunity to get into what we consider to be a new gold frontier. It's been relatively underexplored, we feel, in the recent past. And there were a couple of licenses available that were I was aware of through my previous company, Reservoir Minerals. And there had been a gold discovery on those licenses back in 2012. Now, we knew that there's a certain amount of alluvial gold mining happening in Cameroon, mainly in the east, on the eastern borders of Cameroon, but very little in the way of hard rock exploration focused on these orogenic gold systems. So we have 2 licenses there, which are exactly that, great locations for orogenic gold systems at Bibemi and Wapuzi. I'll just try to annotate this a little bit just to give you an idea where we're looking. So we're the wrong way around there. Apologies for that. We're looking in the north of the country here, Bibemi and Wapuzi, and these two licenses are in partnership with a Cameroonian company, BEIG3, which was the previous partner or the owner of those licenses, previous partner with Reservoir Minerals. We've done quite a bit of work there in the last couple of years. Initial boots on the ground geology, geological soil sampling, mapping, structural interpretation, and then we did an expanded trenching program at Bibemi. The idea being that Bibemi was slightly more advanced than Wapuzi, and we had some great results, up to 9 meters at just over 3 grams on one of the trenches at Bibemi, and we've confirmed and really built our confidence in this large striking anomaly, this gold anomaly, over 5 kilometers in the central zone, and out of a package of around about 20 kilometers of anomalous gold that was identified previously by Reservoir at Bibemi. But Wapuzi, we did quite a detailed soil sampling program, and again identified some significant mineralization there during the program in 2019. Central Cameroon, we have identified an area with a great geological prospectivity. This is a splay off the Central Cameroon shear zone. It's a gold area. There is existing evidence of gold from both artisanal workings and some historical mapping back in the 1960s. And it's an area of between two shear zones. It's deep tapping crustal structures. This Central Cameroon shear zone forms a mobile belt between the Congo Craton and the West African Craton. So it's a really geologically active area and has been over many millennia. And this Neoproterozoic terrain really ticks all the boxes for gold exploration of the orogenic type. Deep-seated structures, long-lived mineralization, some great host rocks, and the opportunity in this area to peg brand new ground with no competition really. We have a number of licenses under application here right now. So if we zoom in a bit on Bibemi, and let's talk about that 5 kilometers of anomalism and the trenching results. You know, we had a significant success from our very early stage work at Bibemi. We did a first pass rock chip sampling program back in late 2018, just as the dry season opened up. And we came back with some great results, multiple ounces, over 100 grams a ton. I think our highest rock chip sample there was 135 grams a ton. So we know that there's gold in the system. That's doesn't need debating. The system is long. Again, we have a long structure here that's running all the way up here. This over 5 kilometers trend with anomalous gold all the way along it. And in certain zones, we see a number of high-grade hits from the trenching and some stacked vein systems in these pods of mineralization where we have structural intersections. Now we have zone 1 and zone 2. These are subparallel structures, and the grades in here are really quite spectacular. Some of these stacked systems, subvertical and subhorizontal veins, we get some great results coming out of these. I don't know how clear they're going to be on the screen to you all, but again, you can look at this in more detail on the website. So some of those stacked vein systems, we're getting rock chip samples from the most recent program, 35 grams a ton, 2.6 grams a ton, 23 grams a ton, this sort of thing. So really well mineralized. And the program at Bibemi for this year, which we were originally planning to do earlier this year, we were delayed, obviously due to the COVID lockdown. The plan is to mobilize a drill rig in and to start testing some of these better targets, some of these better intersections with fences of drill holes. You can see on the image on the left here, this is just a blow up of one small area here in the bottom end of zone 2. what we have here is a number of trench intercepts running, a gram plus, and we know that this is a subvertical system with subhorizontal stacked veins. So we need to give some vertical depth to that. So the plan is to come in and drill some holes, some scissor holes and some step back holes to identify the vertical extension of the surface gold anomalism. And the plan is to do that at various points along the strike, to come in and hit these key areas with drill program through Q4 this year and into Q1 2021. Initially 2,000 meters stretching to 3,000 meters. We have already pegged the collars for these holes. We identified those early this year, in December last year and January this year. And we have 17 target locations already identified and ready. It's just a matter now of mobilizing the drill rig and getting on site, drilling a few holes. To the north of Zone 1 and Zone 2, again, you can see the end of Zone 1 and Zone 2 outlined here. To the north of these, to the northeast of these, we have what appears to be a closure area. And part of the program this year as well is to follow up on the work mapping that closure zone that was done in late 2019, here shown in these yellow blocks on the image on the left, and to extend that mapping into this northern area, where we basically hope to find a junction point of Zone 1 and Zone 2. Obviously, those structural locations are critical for giving volume to your gold anomalism. So we know that we have significant gold here. We've got significant strike length. It's consistent. We've got subvertical and subhorizontal vein systems. Grades up to 130 grams a ton, 135 grams a ton, and significant lengths and intercepts in the trenching. It's now just a matter of mobilizing a drill rig to test this vertically and to give us the first steps towards hopefully working up a resource in the Bibemi area. So that's Bibemi. If we move to the northeast of Bibemi along strike, the second license, Wapuzi, this is about 20 kilometers away. And Wapuzi, up until now, has only had soil sampling on it. So it's a step behind in the exploration process, a step behind Bibemi. But the soil sampling we did previously, we'd identified 13 kilometers of anomalous gold on a 400 by 100 meter grid. We did some infill on that to a 200 by 100 meter grid, and we saw some really good, significant areas of anomalism cohesive across those lines. And interestingly, in the more southern area of Wapuzi, in this area here, we're seeing three parallel systems coming together as we get to the edge of the license. Now that area, the edge of the license, is up against a granitic intrusive. And so again, this is an area of structural complexity that gives us an opportunity for higher volumes of gold. So at the moment, we've only had soil sampling here, highest grade to date, 531 ppb gold in soils. But the plan is to obviously put in a targeted program here to prepare Wapuzi targets for drilling after we've completed our program in Bibemi. So it's a very progressive program for the two licenses. Boots on the ground geology, very straightforward program. And on the evidence of the work we've done there in the last two and a half years, we're really hopeful of great success on both of these projects. Now, I mentioned expanding our footprint in Cameroon, and we've done this quite extensively in central Cameroon. We did a program in 2019 to look at a geological review of the whole of Cameroon to try to rank targets. As we consider this to be a new frontier, this is the right time to pick the best areas of Cameroon to focus before the rest of the exploration world really wakes up to it and comes charging in. We did that process in 2019, and we identified 7 key areas in Cameroon that we would like to operate. And we ranked them, and our rank 1 and 2 areas, obviously priority-wise, we looked at those first for potential for picking up open ground. Now, the mining system in Cameroon. They've developed a new mining cadastre system online, so you can interrogate this on the website and see where licenses have been applied for or already granted. And we saw in this central area, Zone 1 and Zone 2, or rather target areas 1 and 2 in central Cameroon, we saw a huge area of open ground. And so we were able to put in an application for 8 individual licenses, totaling 3,500 square kilometers. It's a critical structural area. It's a long trend on that splay off the central Cameroon shear zone. So again, deep tapping crustal structures, fantastic Neoproterozoic host rocks. It really sits in, it ticks all the boxes and sits in a great place for exploration targeting. And in this area, again, from the 60s and 70s, evidence of gold activity from artisanals in the past. So the reason we've got 8 licenses in here in 2 different groups, you'll notice the 2 different colors on the slide here. Under the new mining law, which was developed with the help of the Finnish Geological Survey recently as part of the pre-CASM program, you're allowed to apply for 5 licenses per company, to a maximum of 500 square kilometers per license. So we have 3 licenses, the western side here, these 3 licenses put together by a joint venture with BEIG3, our partner, and then we have the licenses in the east here under ORIOLE Cameroon, which is a subsidiary company we formed last year. These licenses are under application, and it'll be early stage here, early stage generative work. The first pass program will be to carry out a number of stream sediment samples. This is typical regional exploration to try to refine the focus away from the massive 3,500 square K footprint, which is a district scale footprint really, and to hone it down to some specific target areas. So this proposed stream sediment planning has already been put together by our team out there. We've identified 1,300 target locations on these streams. This is just a topographic underlay color here. And you can see that these drainage basins are quite extensive. So we'll be able to work up those primary order streams to identify where the gold that's been seen by the artisanals is coming from, and try to find the core reason for that mineralization. So subject to approval, final approval, that remote sensing and that mapping and package-wide stream sediment sampling will be carrying on, or will be starting off rather, as we get into the dry season in the next month or 2. So moving on from Cameroon, that's Cameroon's really our primary focus of our technical team right now. But we have a couple of other things in our stable, a couple of other projects that are really significantly valuable to ORIOLE. And perhaps the most talked about, the most frequently discussed recently, is in Senegal in the Kédougou-Kaniba inlier, KK inlier. Now this area is, in eastern Senegal, it's a hugely endowed area for gold. 40, possibly even over 50 million ounces of gold endowment right now. A number of existing mines, historical mines, currently operating mines, and new mine development projects. And it's in this area, right in the center of this area, that we have our Sonala license. Now, the Sonala license, we entered into a joint venture with IAMGOLD back in 2018, just as I was joining the company. And the key thing to note here is that IAMGOLD have what they call the Boto Mine Development Project, just to the east of the project, just to the east of our license rather, down here at the south. Now that is a 2.5 million ounce mine development project, and it was shown profitable on the feasibility studies based on a $1,200 gold. We're currently close to 2,000, so we can imagine it's still profitable. And it's part of IAMGOLD's strategy of developing new targets in West Africa. You'll notice the jurisdiction that we're in here, our neighborhood is quite busy with some large names, Barrick Gold, Randgold, IAMGOLD, and obviously some junior activity that's been in the news recently, Chessa Resources, just to the east of the northern part of our license up here at Diamba Sud. So the agreement with IAMGOLD, it's an $8 million earning by IAMGOLD on our license, and it was signed on in March 2018, literally the day I joined the company. It was a deal that had been put together by the previous management team and the previous board, and it was really focused on, at the time, the license was called Dalafin. It had about 2 years to run. And it was an $8 million earning, with IAMGOLD taking the opportunity to assess the license. And the activity from our side was to be the renewal of that license, which we've successfully did last year. We actually were able to relinquish and reapply for the license to maintain the entire 472 square kilometre footprint. And that's why the name has changed from Dalafin to Sonala. We had to rename the license for the new application. But that now gives us a 10-year tenure on this license. IAMGOLD are in year 3 of their investment. The first 2 years they focused in the south, and the third year now they're focusing up in the north. The investment is two-phased. It's $4 million to obtain 51% over 4 years, and then another $4 million over 2 years to obtain 19%, to take it up to a maximum of 70%. So it is a very typical type of agreement that these companies draw up, companies such as ours draw up, and it has meant that for the last 3 years we've not had to financially contribute to any work on this license while it's progressed. If we focus on the north of the license, the first 2 years obviously was IAMGOLD was looking at Medina Barfe and Sarudia. I'll just go back actually and just highlight that. The Medina Barfe and Sarudia areas are down in here. We've got 5 target areas through the license, and obviously with Boto, the mine development project, sitting just here, Medina Barfe and Sarudia offered the opportunity to IAMGOLD to be satellite pits to the Boto mine development project. Now we're waiting for the decision on Boto, but obviously that's the hope is that Medina Barfe and Sarudia will be truckable ore that could feed into Boto at some stage once they've been worked up beyond the current status. So this year, the third year, there's been a shift by the exploration team up to the Fare area in the north. This is probably our best target outside of the Boto area, and it's aligned with, or very close to, recent results from Chesser Resources up here on the Diamba Sud project. They're only about 12 kilometres apart, these two targets. So if we look at Fare itself, we believe this area has the potential to be a standalone open pit. We've got a significant strike length here, over 6.5 kilometres of strike length of gold anomalism in total, with a couple of key areas of higher grade in the centre. You'll see that there's a trend here which seems to be running. The main geological trend is kind of a northeast southwest in this area, but there's a cross-cutting trend which is forming this sort of pattern. X marks the spot, so to speak, in the middle. And this is an area where previously we've had some really good results from drilling in 2013 and 14, prior to the deal with IAMGOLD. And you can see here some of those results outlined on this map and in the section. And really, the intercepts are quite phenomenal. Our longest intercept to date, 96 meters at 1.51 grams a ton. Shorter intercepts, typically around the sort of 10 to 50 meter lengths. 56 meters at 2.2, 14 meters at 2.94, 23 meters at 1.41. These are all the sort of results which Chesser are currently publishing on their Diamba Sud target to the east. And what we believe is this forms a gold corridor across this part of Senegal. If I just flip back again, you'll see the two structures running across like this. These cross-cutting structures against the main regional trend, which is more like this. And you get Fare in here and Diamba Sud in here. So you see exactly why we're so excited about Fare as a standalone target, and obviously why Chesser are busy with their work at Diamba Sud. Now, if we look at Fare in a bit more detail for what IAMGOLD's current plan is, They kicked off year 3 investment earlier this year, as I mentioned, with the announcement of a 10,000 meter air core drill program over this area. And they really focused on on tying together these currently known areas of anomalism along the 6.5 kilometer trend. So there's been a hiatus in that drilling whilst the wet season's gone through and prevented access. That's just ramping up again now, and we look forward to seeing results from the infill drilling, this air core drilling around the area, to really define these targets a little bit more detail. So great news and great progress in that wonderful part of Senegal. So as a company, what are we focused on? Well, we're a gold and base metals targeted company. That's where our skill set lies. And currently our existing projects are typically in the earlier stages. We're looking down here at existing projects, both investments and operations of our own. And what we're trying to do is get in at the early stage on that value curve so that when we do get an opportunity and we have discovery and the ability to develop resources, we're on that growth curve in the early stages. So that's really where we're targeting our time and our technical expertise right now. Now I'm going to hand over to Bob. That's kind of a summary of key activities both in Cameroon and with our partners IAMGOLD in Senegal. But I'll hand over to Bob now to talk us through some of our other assets, our legacy assets, and some of the underlying value in the company and potential new avenues to cash, and also the interim cash statements themselves, which were published this morning. Bob.
Okay, thank you, Tim. So this slide is quite a busy slide, but it covers the 15-year legacy history of the company. The company started in Turkey, moved to East Africa, and then ended up in West Africa, which Tim's talked about with Senegal and Cameroon. But that 14-year legacy has actually left us with lots of pots of value that we're gradually realising as we push ahead. We've realised £250,000 worth of value already this year from selling our stake in Tembo and 2 royalty deals in Turkey. And there remains quite a lot of value still out there for us to get at. So the biggest, probably most important, is our 1.2% royalty on the Muradaya copper gold project in Turkey. This is a project at EIA stage with $400 million net metal value. So that would be approximately 4 million royalty if we held the royalty throughout the life of the mine. But it's obviously a valuable and attractive asset that may or may not be disposed of along the way. Also in Turkey, we have approximately $1 million of payments that are due to us over the next maybe 18 months to 2 years as projects progress. As the Hassan Chalabi project and the Courage project progress, we should receive approximately $1 million from them. And then we've got $1.4 million of debts, which we're pursuing through the Turkish courts at the moment. Usually in positions against former partners who've reneged on deals, and we've got a pretty strong position, I would say, in all of that. And in many ways, it's just a waiting game. Other assets worthy of note are the Egypt, the 26% holding in an Egyptian gold exploration company, which has got a large license in Egypt with a mixture of JORC and non-JORC resources on it, totaling 700,000 ounces of gold. We have a 26% stake in that. And then we have a 10% stake in a gold exploration operation in Djibouti, which is operating on 3 licenses, where there's a current aggressive, well-funded drill program going ahead in that country. And we look at these assets as a pot of resources to sell, to use to fund exploration. And we currently have active conversations across most of these assets, actually. They may or may not come to anything, but we keep active conversations going all the time on them. Coming to the numbers, and this slide kind of shows the 3.5-year P&L of the business. And as Tim mentioned, the board all joined in 2018. So if you like, 2017 is, the first comparative. And the progress we've made from a statutory 6.3 million loss to a small profit for our interim numbers this morning is pretty marked. It's quite unusual for a junior explorer to post a profit, and there's really four things that have driven that. When we went into COVID lockdown, we immediately slashed salaries. We went to part-time working. We talked to our advisors, and we've got fee reductions across the board from our advisors. The Turkish team, who'd set up a consultancy business in 2019, somehow managed to keep that going through a Turkish lockdown that was similar to the UK, and actually posted a profit for the 6 months, which is a pretty remarkable achievement given they all had to work from home. So they made a small profit. We rushed through our R&D tax claim for 2019. We received 165,000 cash in May of this year from the work we did there. And then the biggest item was a bit of an accounting anomaly, a 730,000 forex gain on our euro and dollar assets. In the euro asset is Sanala, the dollar assets are the holdings in the Egyptian and Djibouti companies. So we got this, quite strange accounting anomaly of a huge forex gain, but it just kind of serves as a reminder that we're very much an international business. We've got exposure to the gold price, which is very robust at the moment in the current global crisis. And we don't have any Brexit exposure at all. All our operations are overseas. So very much an international business. Quite a complicated P&L. If you look at it, there's an awful lot of items on there which are sort of one-off items over the last few years, or things that we just have very little control over, such as what our associates and investment companies are doing, and what the exchange rate does. So in order to keep track of that a little better, I normalize the P&L and basically strip out everything that we can't influence, or we can't influence much. So this is very much the ORIOLE operation as we run it. And again, you can see the progress we've made from a 2.4 million loss in 2017 to a small loss in the first half of this year. And we've done it, as mentioned before, through very, very hard decisions on costs, driving costs down, the Turkish consultancy business. We managed to reduce our net cost of running the business by 48% between 2017 and 2019. And then when I annualize what I expect for 2020, we're looking at a further 45% reduction. So we've done as much as we can to focus cash on exploration, basically. And this is probably easier to illustrate in a graph. This is 6 categories of expenditure, from the Turkish costs to the UK directors, the UK employers, the African costs, and the legal and compliance, which is it's the darker blue colour. So as you can see, we've driven pretty much every cost category down over the last 3.5 years, to the extent that Turkey and other costs, which includes R&D, actually made a profit for the 6 months. So a lot of progress in trimming the company down, but at the same time, our exploration spend has gone from virtually nothing in 2017 to spending $1.5 million in Cameroon since the middle of 2018. So we've kind of got leaner and busier at the same time, which is pretty pleasing. And then this is just a representation of our shareholder base, and our market cap of is under 4 million at the moment. Despite all the things we've talked about with Senegal and Cameroon and all the legacy assets. We've got cash at the end of August of 500,000. We updated that from the interims to reflect the recent fundraise. And the shareholder base, that shows the current shareholder base. The important point to note is on a fully diluted basis, the directors actually took a salary sacrifice scheme for the 4 months from November 19 and have recently had that converted to options. So we've effectively invested £120,000 into the stock of the company on a fully diluted basis, which brings us to a 7% holding. And on that, I'm back to Tim to finish off.
Thanks very much, Bob. Yeah, so as Bob says, I think the key thing to remember here is we've had a focus on reducing our costs, reducing our G&A, but at the same time expanding our exploration. Taking that position in Cameroon, the partnership in Cameroon, the investment, the exploration, the trenching program, the sampling programs, and the new license position as well. So what can we look forward to in the next 6 to 12 months? Well, we're at the stage now of mobilization of drilling onto the Bibemi license. There'll be an announcement on that, I'm sure, coming up quite soon. Results obviously coming from that program over towards the end of the year and early into 2021. And perhaps sooner than that, some results from the mapping and sampling in that northern Zone 1 and Zone 2 confluence, the Northern Bakassi zone, where we believe those two structures come together. The grant of the new licenses in central Cameroon is eagerly awaited. Obviously, the Cameroonian system has been hit by the COVID delays, as the rest of the world has. We're expecting to see some positive news on those in the coming weeks and months. And that'll trigger the ability for us to do some remote sensing work on that and to kick off our regional stream sediment sampling to start identifying individual targets in that district scale New Frontier gold package in central Cameroon. So lots of news to come out of Cameroon over the next 6 months or so. In Senegal, the initial results from IAMGOLD's aircore program at Fare are obviously eagerly awaited as well. These are primarily obviously just to try and tie together the existing known mineralization. We already have drilling there. We have diamond drilling. We have RC drilling there. We know that there's a great potential there. So more progress at Fare would be great. And also in Senegal, obviously, at some stage, IAMGOLD have to make a decision on the Boto mine development project. This is a project. They've completed the feasibility. The mine has been permitted. The environmental permits have been issued, etc. It's literally just a matter of strategic timing for IAMGOLD as to when and how they look to access Boto and develop it. On the cash generation front, to offset and pay for some of this exploration and activity in Cameroon, a continuation of the asset sales and the realization of value from some of those legacy projects that Bob was talking about. These are non-core to the business, and it's if anything, it's an administrative burden to maintain oversight on them. So the best thing we can do is realize cash back from them and to put that cash to use in Cameroon and on other projects. And speaking of other projects, obviously throughout this lockdown period, and ever since we joined the company back in 2018, we're always on the lookout for new opportunities in the African and European time zone. We've reviewed a number of projects in the recent past, and we've had some discussions with narrowing down discussions with a few potential opportunities there. So watch this space for both the continuation and expansion of our new frontier in Cameroon and potential for new activities in the gold and base metal space in Africa and Europe. And I think that just about wraps it up.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Tim, and thank you very much, Bob. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. But just ahead of going into both the pre-submitted questions and those that have obviously come in the live event, I'd like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard on the Investor Meet Company platform. I'd also like to remind you that your feedback is important to the company and that immediately after the presentation has ended, you'll be redirected for the opportunity to provide feedback in order the company can understand your views and expectations. And we would very much encourage you to do that. Tim, Bob, I guess before we I direct you to the Q&A tab for those questions that have come in the live event. We had around 9 questions, 7 or 8, 9 questions that were submitted pre-event. What I'd propose to do is just if I can start and address those, because other investors would not be aware of the questions that have come in, and then you can take them as appropriate. Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Lovely. Okay, so the first question is, could you provide, and again, I think there are elements that you've touched upon this within the presentation, but just for the avoidance of doubt, could you update with the progress on the disposal of the non-core assets, and were the disposal values in line with your expectations?
Probably all for you, Bob.
Yeah, sure. I'll take that. So, as we said previously, as we went into lockdown, we were working on a multi royalty kind of portfolio deal with a potential acquirer of our Turkish royalty packages. And each of those royalty packages, the partner had a right of first refusal, which made it a very prolonged process. And ultimately, 2 of those royalty partners exercised their ROFR and bought the royalty. We were happy with the value achieved at a pretty early stage. It's very good to get any money out of a Turkish company, so we're quite pleased with that. Unfortunately, the exercise of the 2 ROFRs, it did kill the portfolio deal, and that dropped away. I know one of the live questions is about the value in terms of that, and we wouldn't want to say that in a public forum, because obviously Moradea, which is the subject of it, is very much still on an available for sale asset, and we wouldn't want to set a price expectation online, so I can't really answer that. But Moradea itself, we'd agreed the deal before lockdown. During lockdown, the copper price has gone up 10%, and the project is edged towards EIA, passing its EIA, which both increased the value of that asset. So in many ways, while the deal went away, it wasn't a bad thing it went away. Where we think we'll get more money for it somewhere down the line. So we continue to talk to people about it and all the other assets in the portfolio. But yeah, we're pretty satisfied with where we ended up on that.
Thank you very much. Follow-on question here: what is the status of the repayment of an outstanding liability from your former Turkish partner?
Yes, I'll take that as well. And actually, there was a live question as well about this very subject, so I'll try and answer both things at the same time. So Anadolu Export, our partner on Courage, which I think the original question was about, owes $425,000 from a success-based payment that was triggered at the start of 2019. And then, as luck would have it, when we did the royalty disposal, they also acquired the royalty under the right of first refusal. And it raised an eyebrow at the time, but it was a right of first refusal. It wasn't linked to any other payment. They had the right to do it. So we're now in the position where they owe us $425,000 and $250,000 as deferred consideration. And where we're going to go with it, we've actually started, now the royalty thing is out of the way, we've actually started mediation proceedings in Turkey, which will either lead to an early resolution or will lead to a long, drawn-out court case. But we're supremely confident we'll win this and pay, because, let's face it, it was a $500,000 success-based payment. They acknowledged it was payable, they made some payments against it, and then they stopped. So it's a pretty watertight case, and I actually think once they get past the EIA, they'll probably just pay it anyway, because I think that for them is where they wish it was rather than where it contractually is. And in terms of getting the money on the royalty payment, this $250,000 is triggered once they move into mine construction. And the contract's drafted in such a way that if they fail to meet that obligation, we get the royalty back. So I'm pretty confident that with some patience and some pressure through the legal courts, we'll get all of that money.
Thank you very much. I know you touched on the fact of director shareholdings and everything else, but one of the questions came through is why should anyone buy ORIOLE shares when the share price has been in persistent decline over the last 5 years from 2.3p in mid 2015 to 0.40 now? Anyone holding over this time are down 80% on their investment.
I'll take that one. From 2015, well, that's 3 years before Bob and I joined the company. So it's really not something that we can talk about or would wish to. It's pretty irrelevant to do that comparison. When we joined in 2018, we joined with the specific mandate given primarily by the shareholders at the request of the shareholders to reinvigorate the company. That's exactly what we've done. Brand new management team, brand new board, brand new projects, brand new funding, and during our tenure, we've done pretty well, we think, considering the status of the company when we first came in. So I think actually what this does flag is the opportunity, if anything, of ORIOLE. You know, you've seen from the presentation the value that we have tied up in Senegal, in the Sonala license, and the value potential we have in Cameroon on those great licenses where we have existing gold anomalism that's been identified and trenched and sampled up in the north, and the potential in central Cameroon, plus all of these other assets, these legacy assets in Turkey and so on, and East Africa, where there's value to be had. So I think if anything, it's a massive value proposition. But I think it's a bit irrelevant to try to compare what we're doing today, moving forward, with what a previous management and board did 5 years ago.
Thank you very much. 3 questions remaining, 2 regarding Cameroon. The first of which is the 2 existing licenses in Cameroon have expired and have not been renewed by the authorities so far. How can a new drill program commence until this happens?
Well, this is actually quite typical in a lot of Africa, sadly. The concept of deemed tenure is quite a strong one, and in fact, it's written into a lot of the mining codes, where if you don't have a negative pushback when you put your renewal or your application in, or rather your renewal in, then it's assumed that you have deemed tenure. So we're working under that assumption at the moment. Obviously, there has been a delay with 2 things. First of all, there's a brand new licensing system put in place in Cameroon. So there's obviously the ministry is getting its head around that, and the COVID delays have just prevented basic administration going forward. But we've had no negative feedback from any of the ministries associated with the renewal of the licenses at Bibemi and Wapuzi. Our new license applications are all lodged. Taxes have been paid. They are showing up on the mining cadastre system, which is available for anybody to view online. So we are very confident that we are literally just in an administrative holding pattern, waiting for the final arrêtés to be issued. And on that basis, we are very confident to move forward to capture the dry season. We want to move forward so that when we're not waiting when the dry season starts and we can access the ground.
Thank you, Tim. I mean, I think you've touched on a little bit of this next question, but the company has stated that the Cameroon project cannot progress because of COVID. This is the only project the company has, and what happens if COVID lingers for 2-3 years? There appears to be no strategy for this scenario, and at the same time, shareholder cash is burning on G&A, whilst no operation progress is being made. Could you just perhaps give a comment around that? Sure.
Well, on the cash burn, I think investors should be supremely confident that we've got that under control. If you look back to the slides that Bob showed, and the description that Bob showed of the reduction in costs, 48% reduction, and a further 45% this year to date. So I think everybody would be correct in saying we've been very wise in our use of funds over the last 2 or 3 years as we've changed the direction of the company. As far as Cameroon goes, yes, obviously there has been a slight delay at the beginning. The country is now open again. Our teams are planning and preparing to mobilise in late September, early October, to progress exploration there. We are looking at other opportunities as well in parallel to Cameroon. And we'll continue to review those. As I mentioned before, we're looking at opportunities in the African and European time zone. But there's a lot of value tied up outside of just Cameroon, but obviously Cameroon can go forward and is going forward.
That's great, thank you. I think we've touched on disposal of non-core assets in the first question, but there was a question: asset sales have been disappointing since the announcement last November. Very little cash has been brought in, and there have also been a number of defaults. What is the current situation?
Shall I take that, Tim?
Yeah, go for that, Bob.
I mean, as I mentioned, asset sales in 2020, we've brought in £250,000 from Tembo and the 2 royalty sales. Morodeo was the big prize. I think we were trying to sell. That's probably the jewel in the crown of the Turkish assets. And because it became a very binary deal, once the 2 roofers were exercised, it didn't go ahead. But I think in the long run, we'll look back at that and think it's probably a good thing. So, I'm quite pleased with where we've got to on the asset sales, and certainly tidying up the Turkish portfolio. It's now just a very manageable list of largely speaking, cash we can expect to get at some point in the future.
I think perhaps just to add to that, Bob is very understated, but one of the things he hasn't really stressed is, we've got over £300,000 back from the government in R&D credits in the last couple of years, thanks to Bob's auspices and his work with Claire on developing those proposals for HMRC, and that's an ongoing thing. So, there is money coming in or money has come in from various places, not just asset sales, and combine that with the extra sharp pencil that Bob brings to our accounting and to our management and the costs of our suppliers and supportive consultants and so on. And I think we're in a really strong place that even a small amount of money coming in from asset sales goes a long, long way.
Thank you. And finally, there have been very few updates concerning Senegal, where Lam Gold are the JV partner. Other companies are able to deliver ongoing news flow, for example, Chessa Resources, Cora Gold. The excuse is that Lam Gold are in control, but surely this is detrimental to ORIOLE shareholders. Management suggests that they are in contact with Lam Gold monthly, so why not update progress / activity on a more regular basis?
Well, again, I've spoken to this before. The deal, which, again, as a reminder, the deal which was signed prior to the new management and board taking over the company in 2018, the deal at the time was a great deal. The company was in a tough place. There wasn't a great deal of money around. There wasn't a great deal of activity of this type in the KK Inlier. So an $8 million earning on the Sonala license, or Delafin as it was then, was a very strong deal to do. But ultimately, IAMGOLD are funding the entire program. And although we have a technical committee, which consists of representatives from both companies, ultimately the decisions on the progress, on the programs themselves, whilst IAMGOLD are quite happy to take our advice, they choose where they will spend that earning money and how they will spend it. You mentioned Chessa Resources. Chessa have essentially one license. They have the license that they've been drilling down the Sud on. They control the exploration there. They have no underlying value like we have on legacy assets. They have no other exploration targets like we have in Cameroon, and yet their market cap is very, very high. So I can see how it frustrates some of the investors at ORIOLE. But again, it just reinforces the position, the undervalued position that ORIOLE is in, and the opportunity that exists at ORIOLE. It's pointless us having a meeting with IAMGOLD and to discuss the progress on an aircore program that's awaiting the dry season. Informing the shareholders of that really brings no value. We wait and see as and when IAMGOLD progress the drilling. We get the results, we publish the results, we comment on them. But we can only do that when activities are happening. So I think it's a kind of a combination of, yes, this deal was done out of our hands. It wasn't necessarily a bad deal, But with the benefit of hindsight, perhaps we would have done it. The new team would have done it slightly differently. But that's the benefit of hindsight. Nobody foresaw COVID, for example. Nobody foresaw the gold price kicking up to 2,000. So I think it's a good deal. I still believe it's a good deal. IAMGOLD are a great partner. The fact that they have Boto mine development project contiguous with our license now, they've closed the gap to make sure that license is contiguous. So all the indications are there that Boto is going ahead. They've committed nearly $30 million recently to the pre-development at Boto, despite having approved the development of the Coat project in Canada. We know that IAMGOLD are primarily so they've got a foot in two camps. That half of the focus is Africa, half of the focus is back in the Americas. They are still very much across both areas. Yes, Coat obviously has been approved. That's a more expensive capex, potentially a higher all-in sustaining cost operation as well. But perception is it's a more stable jurisdiction. Boto is a much lower capex. I think IAMGOLD are probably just considering their opportunities in the district to make Boto or to look at the potential for using Boto as a link to several other targets around. And of course, if you look at Medina Barfe in the south of our license for potential satellites, you look at Fare as another potential open pit standalone mine in the north. They need to understand better the bigger picture before they commit. And I understand that. We understand how the larger companies operate like this. It's not unusual to us.
Perfect. Thank you very much indeed. That concludes, and thank you for taking all those questions on for investors today. There is an awful lot of commonality, I guess, between the questions that were pre-submitted and those that have come in during the meeting itself. And I know you guys have taken a couple of those already. Just mindful of time, because I'm also aware that you do want investors to provide feedback, and we want to be able to direct them. So could I ask you just to pick up any questions where you feel it's appropriate to give a response now? And just to remind all investors that all questions can be reviewed post the presentation by the company, and where appropriate responses will be given. So if I could just hand back to you guys, that would be great, and then I'll take the floor back. After.
Yeah. Sure. So Tim, I know you were doing most of the talking, so I was keeping track of the questions that came in, and
thanks.
I think we've answered most of them, other than a good question about: will all existing shareholders be invited to participate in any future equity fundraise? Which I think what we would say is, doing a rights issue is incredibly expensive and not the best way to do things. But we've opened up this relationship with the Monexia platform, which will enable shareholders to get involved in any future raises we do, because we will, there's a chance for them to participate in the raise as it goes live, effectively. So you probably, if you're interested in doing that, you probably should check out the Monexia platform and register.
Yeah, the NR private markets platform, we are currently in the investor lounge there, along with a number of other companies. And just for full disclosure, I'm chairman at Monexia, so I would, and Bob is involved there as a CFO. Sorry, as the company secretary. So just to put that disclaimer out there, but we are involved, as Bob says, with NR private markets with Monexia, and as and when we go forward with a raise, obviously there'll be the opportunity to join that raise at the raised price through Monexia, as well as other opportunities. What's the phrase they use on radio? Other companies do exist or something, but
no problem at all. Just as I say, we're now coming up to the hour. Perhaps, Tim, I could just ask you to wrap up, and then, as I said, I will redirect investors to give you feedback.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks very much to IMC for hosting us. I think it's a great opportunity for us to put our cards out, show our wares. I think that we have a great opportunity in the new frontier in Cameroon. And obviously, we have a huge underlying value that's currently kind of under the radar screen, I think, for a lot of investors, with our projects in Senala and Senegal, and with the opportunities for cash inflow to reduce the amount of potential dilution in the future through our Turkish asset realization and so on. So I personally think this is and the board, I know, agree with me. It's a great opportunity at ORIOLE. We've all increased our position through salary sacrifice and so on to expand our position in the company. And we believe we are doing the best for the investors, with good support from Bob on the financial side, some new avenues to cash, and also a real sense of fiscal discipline. We're at the early stage, high risk end of the market. We accept that, we acknowledge that, but we are actively moving forward to try to create as much opportunity for success as possible, whilst spending the investors' money wisely. So thank you very much, and please do sign up on the website to follow for our news, and at NR Markets and Minexia for any news of future raises.
That's brilliant. Tim, Bob, thank you once again very much for updating investors live today. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you will now be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide feedback. If you access this meeting from our website, the feedback page will appear. If you access this via the link sent to you by email, you'll be asked to log back in to submit your feedback, but we do very much encourage you to do that if it is possible. On behalf of the management team at ORIOLE Resources, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That now concludes the session, and good afternoon to everyone.